Hey, 7th graders, Mr. Allard with another one of our flip lessons. Today we're going to be talking about the social impact of the Erie Canal. Should have your interactive notebook updated with page 11 with our graphic organizer. As always, it's fill in the blank notes. Then remember, pause, take your notes, then listen to the flip lesson, answer the questions. There should be 5. We should get a 5 out of 5. All right, here we go. There we go. All right, so first we got to talk about what economic means. Now, economic means the study of money, resources, distribution of goods and resources. That's a whole lot of teacher talk for meaning we're talking about money, things that we want, things that we have, how we get those things from point A to point B, how we trade for those things, and basically how we get stuff. All right, now we're going to be looking at a variety of different ways throughout our course with this to be able to say these are the things that have to do with an economic historian would be the one that would be looking at these. What they would look at, something to do with money, something to do with trade, something to do with how people are getting, exchanging, or making some type of good. All right, some resources or economic buzz terms. So these are words that when you hear us talking about this in class, you're automatically thinking these are probably economic. Trade and taxes, right? The two big T's of economics. What are people trading? What are countries trading with each other? Taxes on goods. Most people don't like the cost of taxes, but they like what taxes do. Jobs and stocks, those kind of go together with some of the themes that we'll talk about, especially what we're talking about right now, the Erie Canal. People are moving to these locations for jobs. When we get into the counties, these are the first times of the stock market, things like that. Banks and companies, these are groups that are going to be around to make money, distribute that money, make sure, groups are being able to trade, being able to produce all sorts of types of different goods. All right, so economic trades of the canal, we got to remember 3 things. Okay, we got to remember more, faster, cheaper. Okay, number 1, we were able to trade goods faster. Typically from Buffalo to Albany, that trip's going to take you about a week or so over land. It's going to take you maybe a couple days using the canal when it's fully completed in 1825. You're going to be able to trade more goods. Okay, you're not, we talked about your wagon sinking in the mud and not being able to travel. That's not going to happen on the canal. You can fit about 2 tons of goods per packet boat on the canal that you can then ship down the canal pretty much 24 hours a day, as long as somebody's able to operate it and things like that. We're not going at breakneck speed. Not a lot of sharp turns. We can travel during the night. It's also going to decrease the cost of being able to trade those goods. It's kind of like if you go to BJ's or a Costco, you can buy things in bulk. Well, if you can trade it and send it in bulk, it's not going to cost you as much, and the cost of shipping goods is going to dramatically decrease. If we look at that chart, we can see how many bushels of wheat are being shipped in the canal. Before the 1820s, virtually 0. Okay, then we get to about 200,000 or more by 1830. Just to give you an idea of how many bushels of wheat, a bushel of wheat is about 60 pounds. So you can do the quick math in your head. 60 times 200,000. There's a lot of wheat going down the Erie Canal. By 1840s, that's getting up to about 1 million bushels per year. That is a lot. We can send a lot of goods. We can send it faster. We can send it cheaper. If we look at this chart, it's kind of giving you an idea, and I misquoted a little bit on my last part, so we'll kind of go over that a little bit more in depth. Actually, I didn't, because this is going all the way down to New York City. Over wagon, if you're going to send a ton of goods, which isn't going to be that many bushels for a farm, it's going to cost you $100 per ton. It's going to take you 21 days to ship that from Buffalo to New York City. Using the canal, it's going to take you 8 days, and it's only going to cost you $10. So that's going to drastically improve your profit, as you don't have to pay as much upfront cost. It's probably going to help you out getting your goods to market and not have to worry about things spoiling and things like that, because it's going to cut your time in about a third, and that's going to just generally make the economy move quicker. That's like when we talked about the social, why all these people are moving to these cities on the canal. Jobs are there. we're able to ship these goods all over the place quicker, faster, and more of them. All right. We talked about those cities, and no other city did the canal have the biggest impact on than New York City. Before the canal, New York was not the city it was today. It was about the fifth biggest seaport in the country. At that time period, New Orleans, which we had just acquired with the Louisiana Purchase, was the most important, and that was at the mouth of the Mississippi River. But after the completion of the canal, 1825, so by 1840, New York City has become the busiest seaport in the United States. And if we take the top three seaports at the time, which are New Orleans, Boston, and Baltimore, and combine them, New York is still trading more goods than any of those cities combined. This is a drastic increase in the amount of goods flowing. And New York City is kind of the end for anything coming from the west to the east, and it's the start from anything going east and west. So it's kind of getting double, operating as kind of the start and the finish line of trade goods on the Erie Canal in either direction. So pretty much any good that's going through the Erie Canal at some point is probably either making its way through New York City or its destination is going to be New York City. All right, so what impact does this have on the entire United States? Well, as you can see from the map below, really, 1820, the western United States stops at Illinois. So now, and this is again, we don't have the advent of railroads yet, we don't have the advent of cars, and not every single canal is on here, but we can get from Chicago to New York via water, which is going to drastically decrease that travel time. The Erie Canal is going to connect those farms in the west, those farms in Ohio, Pennsylvania, western New York, to the markets in the east, to New York City, to Boston, to Philadelphia, to all of those locations where people are to be able to bring their goods to market. Now, soon what you'll see, 1840s, 1850s, is the railroads will start to happen, but that doesn't generally take a huge hit from the canal. That just means we can produce even more goods, and we can use the canal and the railroads to produce those goods. The canal starts what is called the Transportation Revolution in the United States, and you can kind of see on this map. In 1800, it would take you a day basically to get from New York City to outside New York City. It would take you close to a week to get from New York City to Rochester, New York. It would take you close to a month and a half to get from New York to New Orleans. As we, the canal is kind of the start of this. Once we get the canal, we start to get more roads, we start to get more railroads. But by 1850, that same trip that used to take a week to get from Rochester to New York is only taking a day. That same trip that took 6 weeks to get from New Orleans to New York is now taking a week. The canal is the start of that. It's the start of figuring out, as our country expands, we also need to be able to get there quicker, faster, and be able to send more stuff and people and be able to do it cheaper. All right, that's our flip lesson for today. Hope you get all those notes in. Make sure you're getting 5 out of 5 in the questions. As always, if you have any questions, shoot me a message on Schoology. I'll be able to get to it as soon as possible. Till then, 7th graders, at it out.